This is going to be a difficult task for the members of Lag Force, but I feel like there is an equally difficult task that I would like to pose to the other side, and that being Tempo Storm. Tempo Storm last week had the most dominant performance that they have almost ever had in competitive history, I feel like, for the roster, the group of members here, and since they have claimed the #1 spot in North America. They dominated, and Lag Force sitting at the place that they are in within the standings, and if truly the development of Tempo Storm is going to continue in an upward trend, I feel like I want to see equal level of dominance. We have given a long narrative towards consistency in HGC North America throughout all of phase number 2, and the first step to showing consistency is bodying here against Lag Force. Any show, like signs of wavering confidence for me is enough to be like, you know what, I'm not sold.
Yeah, I would agree. We already had what you called one of the most dominant games yet last week for Tempo Storm when they took on Space Station. So let's see if they can do it here. Man, these teams, they know each other so well. I have no doubt that they have a lot of words to say about this match, so let's hear what they have to say.
So lately, Tempo Storm has been going through some changes, and as you can see our results lately, we're still not sure if it's still a good or bad change, but I think what we're going to do for the rest of this HGC split is keeping me on being the split pusher while keeping Caterpillar on main tank, and having the main tank on Chalk Collar will probably benefit our team more in the long run. So I think we're going to stick with this type of role for now and just see how the rest of this goes until BlizzCon. So at the beginning of this part, everyone kind of noticed, there's still some life in Lag Force. They won their first series, and I think this team is definitely reliant on momentum, kind of like how we are, where once they start winning, they'll keep the ball rolling. And even though they're 6th in standing right now, I still think they have a shot at making it towards the 3rd seed for BlizzCon, as long as they put the work in.
Last week, I feel like we were just behind on the meta because of what happened first week when we won both our sets. We tried to do the same exact thing, but it just doesn't work 2 weeks in a row. But ETC is definitely being revitalized because of this meta shift, and I feel like we didn't utilize them well enough in the games that we lost. For Tempo Storm, I feel like it will be a little bit easier because we only have to prepare for how one team's going to play instead of 2 completely original teams. So I feel like Tempo is really strong, but we should be able to take games off them and maybe win.
There's some confidence there from Tomster, but from Fury is the point I really wanted to talk about. This is Fury admitting that they have had a lot of changes really fast, rapid changes in roles, in pretty much every single series we've seen from them so far. But they believe that the best chance for them to make it to HGC finals and to do well is to stick with having Caterpillar on main warrior. And now that we know, and we talked about this yesterday, that there is some change that's happening to the side laning role, there's more things like Malthael coming in, Fury said that he is going to start working on those heroes. Whether we see them this series or even this weekend remains to be seen. They may feel like they can go off of what they have been doing so far and be fine because it's Lag Force and Superstars, but we may start seeing something like a Fury Malthael.
And this is now going to be over that topic point that we brought up yesterday about the trending changes towards that side soaking lane and who is going to be in it, the Warriors or the Melee Assassins. The first team to formally address it is going to be Tempo Storm. And, it's kind of interesting that they chose Fury to be that one to be in that role because of Caterpillar's, flexibility. Let's be real here, probably the most flexible player in all of North America other than iDream way back on Denial, like pulling way back throughout history. He has been that guy. So him to not be that flex and to put Fury, the consistent warrior since the beginning of competitive Heroes of the Storm, on a non-warrior, I mean, I'm not against it. It's just, I'm down for the change. It's just, I am a little bit hesitant because, again, these are very consistent in terms of roles that these players have played for so very long. And after years worth of work, kind of at least being willing to bend on their idea of what is right and wrong.
Both of these teams made the exact same change for the exact same reason. Zuna went on to Warrior, and so too did Caterpillar. But the change in trying to learn the new heroes has happened faster for Lag Force. So this is actually one area that Lag Force may have up over Tempo Storm. We just have to see if Tempo Storm even tries to make those adaptations and bring in these new heroes, or if they stick with what is stable for them so far in this series. We can get into it, though. We've got game number 1, and it's on Dragon Dragonshire. This was a talking point for us already before we even started the series. LagForce has banned Braxis Holdout and then a ban back on Infernal Shrines. Braxis sort of has been the new one for Tempo Storm, but it was also a ban already for LagForce, so this allows Tempo Storm to take away that old comfort ban of Infernal Shrines. But Dragonshire has been a favorite for both of these teams, and they both will probably try to get a global here. They both have played Abathur here, they both played Dahaka here, so we know it's a general same strategy for both of these teams on Dragonshire.
And Tempo Storm, you know, was the first one to venture towards the Abathur, which stands out more to me in the global department than anything else towards Dragonshire. It's a higher risk strategy, but one that they have looked rather successful with. And I can't help but kind of wonder if maybe the reasoning for this Dragonshire spike of priority for the members of Tempo Storm has come because of that strategy solely, or is it because they truly feel as if that's a map that they as a whole can play better than, you know, the opponents in the rest of the North American standings? We'll find out. We've not yet to see a team really push them past the Abathur and maybe deeper into the hero pools on a map like Dragonshire, but I don't know. It's just one of those things to be looking towards as things move forward.
Well, I just received note that we have a substitute player playing in this series for LagForce. They have Leon Black subbing in for Zuna.
I actually have never heard of that name, so I can't help you guys with any background whatsoever. I have not heard of him. That doesn't mean that he has not played some form of competitive Heroes of the Storm, just not while, you know, I kind of stopped keeping track of my amateur open division as much once I stopped competing against him.
Yeah, it makes sense. It is an open division player that is familiar with LagForce, but it does call into question now, he's probably not going to be shot calling for the team, which is generally Zuna's role. So then what happens as a result role-wise for the rest of the team? We'll have to find out.
We don't know anymore.
Yeah.
That is just go ahead and take the whole thing, tip it on its head here. Everything we've had played, and now it's like a who knows, because Zuna is such a core part of this roster. We have to keep in mind, we've seen subs come in and come and go throughout HGC whenever we've had maybe even a disconnect here. But the fact that Zuna, a key member of this roster, is not going to be there, I mean, I feel like this may not be a true statement, but from my perspective, you could not have chosen a worse member on this roster to lose against Tempo Storm.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And for LagForce now, we have to wonder about their mentality, their momentum. They did start with a lot of early momentum. Fury talked about that, but we have always known them to be a momentum-based team. And the momentum stopped hard last week. They lost 2 0-3 series. They were desperate to get game wins. They knew they had that game plan. And now, versus a team where generally they can hope to get some game wins and playing with the sub, it's maybe not going to be so cut and dry for them to try to get those at least 2 wins to set them over superstars.
And with the theory or, you know, opportunity that I kind of proposed, what I want to see of Tempo Storm here in this series, the dominance has only gotten that much more severe, more, you know, I desire it that much more. Knowing that this is going to be a subbed out version of LagForce means that we can assume Tempo Storm should be, I mean, cutthroat throughout all moments of this series.
Well, as we get the draft for game number 1 on Dragonshire started, there is one final point about Tempo Storm that I really wanted to bring up. And that is, for the first time maybe ever, for me remembering back to interviews with the teams, it seems like Tempo Storm feels like they are at the forefront of the meta for the region in North America. I remember back to Phase 1 when this hero here, Tassadar, for Tempo Storm was the bane of their existence. They talked about how the struggles they had in series was due to the fact that they were trying to figure out his place in the meta and the meta in general. And yet now, when we talked to Tempo Storm last week and saw him, he talked about how they have their 3 S-tier heroes. They have Malthael, Dahaka, and Genji, and he listed them off really fast. And then when I talked to Fury, he said, if you see something weird pulled out by another team, it's probably ours. This is the first time I feel like I've ever heard them be at the forefront or feel like they are the ones kind of dictating what happens in the meta. And I think that's really cool and bodes well for them if they are trying to be this new dominant team.
It is really cool to see that kind of level of confidence in an area that we have never seen it from Tempo Storm before. I immediately, when I hear those words, though, go, well, we've heard confidence from Tempo Storm in the past.
That's
they
true.
have walked to multiple international tournaments and claimed that they are going to outperform that of the last and every single time failed to do so. So, though I am optimistic through all the words of Fury here, it still sits in a case where Tempo Storm's performance is got to be, the one that is going to say more than they ever could.
Actions speak louder than words.
Exactly what I'm looking for here. And it's going to start off with this draft. But you talked about the Genji. Lag Force was the one to take that away. High Rhaegar priority for the members of Tempo Storm, but that has been a pretty common trend across the world. And there's the Malthael. 2 out of the 3 already consumed.
Malthael now picked up for Tempo Storm. Not sure yet who will indeed be playing that hero. But as we look at Lag Force now, we have to consider Lucio. If Lag Force agrees that Lucio is the counter to Malthael that Tempo Storm themselves and a lot of other teams have been playing, they would want to pick it up here because otherwise it would be banned. But instead they go for a Garrosh Uther, so having that synergy with the pulls.
I was going to say as well, one thing that we could assume Lag Force maybe wanted to move into has got to be that fall set. And the fact that they did not pick that up, I feel like is a pretty reasonable ban for the members of Tempo Storm. When you have the Malthael, we talk about the Gus interactions, but then more importantly, the global. You talked about both these teams have been comfortable prioritizing a global. Have you ever wondered how Abathur feels when Falset's constantly hunting him? It is a far different game, and the mind games that can happen at the later stages, post 20 shrines, get beautiful on a map like Dragonshire, so hopefully we see that. Tempo Storm is considering one global, just not the one that I assume they would. It's got to be that Dahaka.
Yeah, I think that this immediately shows like they might be thinking about, again, another Abathur composition on Dragonshire. It has been something that Tempo Storm has not been afraid to run. Even, I think at the Western Clash, they were willing to run something like that, but they changed the last minute. There's always this extra global that you have to consider for Lag Force that nobody else has to. Nobody else has been running, and that's Zagara.
ETC is going to be taken away for Lag Force. It is really interesting to see Tempo Storm give that much respect towards Lag Force and their Zagara play. It seems like it's been mixed results, not in terms of performance, but in terms of the amount of respect it's demanded of its opponents. Some have let it go through and been like, you know, not too scary. Others, you know, it's made a much stronger argument when we got B-Kid there onto that hero. But what do we see Tempo Storm want to commit to? They didn't ban out the Dahaka for that solo. They do have the Malthael, who most likely will be able to trade up. So then what is the interest? Now, what part of their 4-man do they commit to? Because Rhaegar is currently the only thing we have displayed.
I think it depends if they want to get that Abathur and put Malthael in the top lane, or if they're going to once again get a Dahaka Malthael. Again, they've proven that they are more than willing to draft both of those heroes, put Fury in the top lane with Dahaka, allow Psalm as the Malthael to rotate around, and then get a warrior, a solid warrior for Caterpillar. But no, Greymane and Falstad, so getting 2 of their 2 ranged picks. So following up with a warrior, they're definitely changing up their roles.
I very much feel like that Falstad was a bit of the interaction that I was talking about before, and no longer is an option for the members of Lag Force, and also ultimately makes the Zagara ban that much more understandable, and you can see the thought process going through. Greymane, generic pick across the board. Don't feel like that is too standout, but we get ourselves a Leoric here from Lag Force to represent up into that top lane. It's going to provide a lot of wave clear. We also might have that Royal Focus split soaking into the double lanes, but ultimately without a global advantage on the side of Lag Force, or at least an even global situation, which is not the case right now, Royal Focus doesn't really stand out. If anything, it's to stop the bleeding of the Falstad pressure rather than being proactive and setting the tone.
One final pick for Lag Force, still waiting on what we would assume to be the primary warrior. Nubarak is up. Johanna's up 2 for wave clear. Oh no, they have Garrosh.
They got the
My
Garrosh.
bad. I didn't even see the Garrosh. So final pick is Li Ming.
Double reset, double warrior coming out from Lag Force into a triple melee or triple squish on the side of Tempo Storm. Traditionally, I would look at that last pick and be like, Gilly, I'm really concerned for the lack of wave clear, the lack of, you know, who's going to get the kills here. But because Tempo Storm has committed towards a very squishy team composition, this last pick is not going to be beefy enough or safe enough for me to really be that intimidated, other than maybe a Tyrael. But I don't feel like that's where Tempo Storm is going to go. More like a Johanna or something of the like.
Has to be something that is okay with tanking the Garrosh throws. So my thought is immediately, what has Tempo Storm drafted in that position before? Even though it was a different warrior player, the idea still remains. A Johanna, potentially because she has her own type of cleanse. Maybe the Varian, but I feel like Varian is far too late into the game for their liking, for the way that they want to play Dragonshire. So my thought would be Johanna, but they're going to go with Muradin, another pick for them that has been solid to make sure that if he is the one who's thrown, even if he takes an extra stun from Uther after that, he still can Dwarf Toss away.
I've got to go ahead and ask you here, now that we see that final pickup, what are your general thoughts onto these drafts? Because right now we're sitting in a situation where we have, you know, Leon Black and the remaining core 4 members of Lag Force with a difference in their draft and some changes, the upswing that they have had as of late, and then Tempo still making their changes just before we get to see any kind of level of play. I mean, really, what do you think?
Immediately, the first thing that jumps out at me is I am so excited to see Lag Force prioritize damage. They have been running a lot of damage-light compositions or having trouble with, they deal damage, but they can't get the kills. Malthael and Lunara and Dahaka, things that don't enable them to get kills, and they have obviously taken that to heart. They have Leoric, who can potentially still royal focus back and forth between lanes, allowing them to keep Li Ming and Genji together, or even Genji to rotate up and help out Leoric. So that draft looks pretty good. I'm excited to see how that unfolds for them. But for Tempo Storm, it's all about, this is pretty new for Tempo Storm. This is not a double warrior. Unless they are going to rotate Caterpillar back, this is when we're going to see Fury and how he does in his first game with Malthael.
I feel like if Tempo Storm's any signs of struggle, a lot of this is going to be scapegoated towards that change. But I feel like just before this game happens, I love the draft of Lag Force. I feel like going into that triple range was a huge risk on the side of Tempo, again, because of that change. But then going into a double reset, as long as they're the ones opening up the fight and they are opening with command, you know, we see Genji and Ling Ming opening at the same time, get the Divine Shield. I feel like the chances of winning this game are very, very high, as long as you just do not get baited into a poor Gus situation and you don't get massive out-rotated by that false at levels 1 through 9. Just pure team fighting alone, Lag Force has a really solid composition.
And we know the Lag Force likes a team fight, but they are playing with the subs, so we'll see if that's still the case. Game number 1 is ready, so let's get right to it. Dragonshire for game 1 between Tempo and Lag Force.
Tempo Storm is in the blue, where we have June on his Rhaegar. Fury flexing over to the Malthael. We have Cothin Luck on Falstad. Psalm will be the Greymane, and Cattle bringing it back to main warrior on the Muradin.
And in the red, Lag Force with Leon Black sub-player playing Garrosh. Up next, Li Ming, played by Biggie, Big Impact. Uther will be played by Tomster, getting all the stuns, the follow-up for Garrosh. Beacon will be playing Leoric, and finally, iDream playing Genji. Immediately seeing a Worgen style build for Greymane. But we have seen a lot of change from that. I was watching the match between L5 and Tempest earlier, and we even saw a viciousness for that, and then went into human range at level 7, Quicksilver bullets. So there's a lot of different options for Greymane builds. I mean, that we've talked about that before. Bakery had an article on the website about how flexible Greymane can be, both in what he provides to the team as well as his talent building. But we'll keep track of that and see if Psalm is going to be playing a more melee-centric style of build.
Gotta give a really huge shout out to what Tempo Storm is trying to make happen through this laning phase on Dragonshire. We know that lanes are extremely important on this map, so in order to kind of compensate for what might be a lane mismatch, or at least less dominant up in the top lane between Fury on that Malthael and the Leoric, transitioning Greymane up instead for a moment. Greymane rips through Leoric. He's going to sit still and want to try and get the self-sustain. Greymane and Worgen form just out-damages it at the beginning stages of the game in the earlier aspect. So Psalm babying up on top. Granted, it is a bit more of a 2-1-2 rather than a solo lane completely. But I do like that they're willing to transition that counter up top to, you know, make Lag Force at least be a bit more responsive up there.
And recognize when Genji is going to head down, but this does give Lag Force an opportunity to deal more damage to the bottom lane. So Tempo Storm has to make something happen with this. Too many times we see teams focus on the top lane and then lose too hard in the bottom lane, where you end up generally losing the game from. But in having Greymane up at the top, it also provides a lot more possibilities of dealing structural damage too. Once he gets that extra damage, attack damage in Worgen form, he can chew through just about anything. Mercenaries, structures too. So they've already taken out one tower, and they're going to pull up Garrosh and Genji.
Got himself a flip onto Psalm. Disengage up in a couple of seconds. He drops a Q. It's not enough. First blood over to Lag Force, but Leon Black is the focus. He ends up going down 1 for 1 in game number 1.
Rhaegar's going to move onto the Shrine. Both teams getting level 4, but still a consideration of what Psalm wants to get as his level 4 talent on that Greymane. Both of the Shrines being held. There's 2 members in the middle, but it's going to be hard for June to squat on this. Thankfully, he doesn't need to for very long. Caterpillar did a great job of zoning that Genji away, and Tempo Storm, and having the dominant lane presence, were able to capitalize a little bit faster on having the 1-for-1 trade, and they will get the first Dragon Knight.
And already Tempo Storm here has managed to pull ahead quite a bit in the experience, and it's only going to be furthered greater there. The pickup on bottom, I mean, that's about a cherry on top. I didn't even consider that in the math problem that is this experience. Tempo now transitioning towards bottom. That's another front wall to be able to pick up. Psalm did end up getting flipped back second time of the game, and Leon Black's, making a name for himself. Not trying to take away from Zuna here, but maybe we've been looking at the wrong guy on the members of Lag Force.
He's been landing in these combos pretty well. He's helping deal the damage, allow for the space for Big E and iDream to get the damage in on Cawthon. But that's an early Dragon Knight, so getting towers down, getting a gate is about best case scenario for that unless you really get a lot of kills. The bigger deal is that Tempo Storm are almost a full level ahead of Lag Force early on in this game, and have opened up towers in multiple lanes so that they can start getting the pressure going to an unwinnable situation for Lag Force.
And I think it only gets worsened when we consider the lack of global that Lag Force has, or again, that they do not have, and Tempo Storm has themselves a false set. That means that for the remainder, their laning phase is more forgivable because they have a false set, but more importantly, that their late game, again, the post-20 with globals becomes far more advantageous towards the team who ends up having one. So it really does kind of almost like in an Abathur composition, Lag Force should be trying to pull ahead in the earlier stages. Not by a lot, but by a substantial amount. Being behind is a problem, but Leon Black's trying to change that there with another brilliant initiation onto Tempo Storm, but Cattle made it out.
Yeah, June did a great job of holding on to the orb of Li Ming so that it couldn't go past him and take out Caterpillar. And Tempo Storm has been able to keep Cattle alive and regulate this bottom lane again, trying to push it back toward the fort where there is no towers. There are no gates protecting it. All the teams making sure to keep a hold of the lanes, keep soaking the lanes, but still that level lead for Tempo Storm has remained because nobody has been able to get any picks for Lag Force, even though they are landing those combos.
They are landing the combos, and now they're so far behind that full level here pre-10. We know the Dragon Knight is going to come online in the next 30 seconds. There it is. And 10, nowhere to be found for the members of Lag Force, whereas we know Tempo Storm will confidently be creeping up on that one.
Very cool MVP Black style transition for the solo lane. Now that we have Boomerang for Falstad, Malthael's down with the rest of the team, and Falstad's up in the top. As the shrines get ready to activate, Grayman's going to go up to join him, but this should be a rather quick Dragon Knight for Tempo Storm unless Lag Force can position in a way to try to get a pick right before Tempo Storm can get 10.
This is one of those cases that even if Lag Force does manage to hold on to the Dragon Knight, you got to be asking yourself, is it worth it really risking these staggered deaths? They decide that it is worth it. iDream is going to make his transition here towards top. 10 is now just achieved for the members of Tempo Storm. They still control the bottom altar.
There's multiple members up at the top. As soon as this is recognized, Tempo Storm can just try to back off and go get the bottom fort instead. But instead, they lose Cawthon luck. Now Psalm in a terrible position too. And Lag Force pulls him back into the fray so they can bring him down. 2 kills for Lag Force. And that surely will make sure that Tempo Storm can't get a Dragon Knight before Lag Force gets heroics.
And now Lag Force has got to be very thankful for the situation that they have found themselves in. That misrotation by the members of Tempo Storm have now bought them their heroics as those come online here. They are unable to make anything happen with those death timers by Tempo Storm, but that's their lack of wave clear. It all relies on the Leoric, and I mean, it's pretty apparent that he's going to be stuck there up in the top lane trying to minimize the damage that Malthael is going to distribute. And once again, Tempo controls both of the shrines, even when Lag Force was the last one to get the 2 kills.
There is the global problem you were mentioning, and Malthael was hanging out in the bush up in the top lane and just waited until the rotations went out for Lag Force. But Lag Force just kind of went to the mid, and that let Tempo Storm get both of those shrines. But Lag Force has now gotten the top again. So just a lot of rotations back and forth between trying to figure out where members can get kills in this game.
The one thing I do want to highlight here for Tempo Storm, still keeping track of the level of aggression being displayed, is it does feel like they have... Oh, wait a minute here. Leon Black found himself a June. Thompson got the stun. They get the kill. Tormented Souls is going to be used here for Fury, but it seems like it's too late because there is a Divine Shield. iDream getting that Dragon Blade reset. Cattle using the Avatar deterred the secondary reset. Leon goes in for a last attempt, and that is it. 2-0. Lag Force still fighting here in game 1.
Excellent synergy off of the pull for Leon Black. Immediately A lot of lockdown from the taunt, and then, of course, the synergy is going to be there between Tomster and iDream having the Divine Shield for the Dragon Blade. B-Kit's been pushed off of the bottom, or the top shrine, with a lot of the rest of the members of Tempo Storm. That's where they've made their stand. They sent everybody who hadn't died as a way of making sure that Lag Force don't get a Dragonite in this time, but for the first time in a long while, Lag Force has pulled ahead in experience.
Gilly, this is, honestly, it's rather concerning here for the members of Tempo Storm, the lack of proactivity that they have displayed with the false head in the transition. I do feel like their laning phase is a bit awkward because of how the Greymane Leoric situation happened up towards the top lane. Falstead's been unable to kind of fly and be a threat up towards the top lane like you normally see. He's been more of a laning placeholder. But just even the fact that Lag Force has held on this much and maybe even over the last few minutes gained control of this game is anything but what you would expect to be displayed after what happened last weekend.
Yeah, it feels like the biggest problem for Tempo Storm was when Sam and Falstad were up toward the top and the rotation from Lag Force wasn't recognized for Tempo Storm, and instead of just backing off and kind of punishing the over-rotation of several members of Lag Force by just getting mid or a bot push, instead they tried to all rotate up at the same time, but at that point people had already been lost. Now Tempo Storm is going to the top lane yet again. Hardened Bones keeps B-Kid alive as he Wraith walks back, although there is the Reaper's Mark that will get through that armor.
But Rhaegar's actually found himself stuck here in the mid lane to be the side soaker, and that is not where you want him to be if iDream is going to be here in the mid lane. Both the Shrines control. Tempo Storm might start themselves a Dragonite. It's who can make the transition down from above. B-Kid is there. Li Ming with the Disintegrate does get the delay.
A lot of people have found Lag Force, but that is not a safe rotation spot for a Falstad. He'll go around the better way.
Leon Black
throws Fury in and immediately Tormented Souls. Leon Black is very low and he goes down, and Ancestral Healing keeps all of Tempo Storm healthy.
And now iDream and friends are trying to find their way out of here. B-Kid is going to be focused there as Cattle lands the Stormbolt. 3 members down for Lag Force, and the second Dragonite going to be picked up here for Tempo Storm. 9 minutes and 40 seconds in. I can expect this to be a minimum 1 fort, and if beyond that, it's either going to be a secondary fort or a keep front wall for Tempo. That is the goal now that they have this Dragonite.
There's a couple of talents that are really helping Malthael out in these fights now. One is Mortality. We saw a focus on Garrosh, and traditionally Garrosh can be a really difficult one to kill. But having Mortality so that Wraith Strike is dealing % base damage health helps with once he is getting really low in health. And then having Giant Killer for Falstad is going to help with that same thing. So Tempo Storm are still able to focus on a tank where sometimes you just don't have the composition available to let you do that with Garrosh, especially since he has double up now for those low health, high armor situations. They also have Cursed Bullet from that, and then Shroud of Wisdom should help Malthael too with all of the ability damage.
He goes with the Wraith Walk. He didn't get the Entomb immediately. Cursed Bullet goes into him, falls below the 50%. Taunts drop there from Leon Black. Dragonite's not even dropped. Tempo Storm is confident that they can take this fight as they're rounding out their 16. Leon Black's the focus. He's first to fall. Will anybody else drop? No. Lag Force makes it out there, but you could respect the eagerness of Lag Force to force that fight pre-16, but Tempo, I mean, it was very calculated and confident there. Not dropping a Dragonite for Fury is just essentially Tempo Storm going, yes, please take this fight.
Yeah, it seemed like Lag Force were even willing to try to make him drop the Dragonite, or at least make sure that they could get in while Malthael wasn't as big of a threat. But because there's still Giant Killer for Falstad, they still had the Cursed Bullet and other damage for Tempo Storm. They were still able to bring down Leon Black. And whereas Lag Force had a good start to this mid-game and were even ahead in experience, now they're starting to fall behind quite a lot. They lost the fort in the bottom. That's going to start to push up more toward the keep structures. They're going to be behind the level 16, and there's going to be a gigantic mercenary push in the bottom lane. Tempo could just try to push the top and the bottom, wait for the Dragon Knight Shrines to spawn, and then pick that up with hopefully their 16 advantage.
And beyond the concern that is the talent tier advantage that Tempo Storm has in their control right now in the mercenary on bottom, is the fact that they opened up that bottom fort, making the second Dragon Knight phase that much less likely for the members of Lag Force. The Falstad has been very oppressive here towards the top lane, which has been Lag Force using that bottom lane is like the last, hold on, a brilliant combo there. Leon Black hitting the pole and the flip midway through a, was that a disengage? That was well done, man. Again, only high praise here for Leon Black and his opportunity subbing in. I don't even remember what I was talking about. That's how impressive that was.
Falstad being oppressive, also impressive for Tempo Storm, but Black Force finds a pick. They're trying for another one. This time it's Caterpillar. He has things like Avatar. He's just
a
very
burden.
tanky.
Yeah, he's a pretty scary little dwarf there. 6 seconds for that secondary Dragonite coming online. We have 8 seconds for Greymane, so a bit of a time where Tempo Storm is disadvantaged and Lag Force has the heroics. Fury picking up that Night Camp. Once that's captured, Lag Force should know that they have a temporary man advantage. It's only for seconds, but that might be just enough.
Tempo Storm got that mercenary camp, and Lag Force had the control of the top lane, so it was easy to get that shrine and make sure there wasn't an immediate Dragonite. But man, that one pick gave Lag Force all the confidence and time needed to get 16 for the shrine phase, and of course making sure that they got their bruisers in the top so that they could get the shrine for the little bit of time needed. Now Lag Force are setting up a trap though, and this is fantastic to see. They know that eventually Tempo Storm wants to rotate up, and they want to bring a lot of people because they don't want to get caught by a trap. So Lag Force seeing if they can be the ones to continue getting kills, get a man advantage, and get the next Dragonite so that they don't lose a keep.
Huge shout out to Cothenluck there for the self-control to not venture out too far. And the minute that the members of Lag Force possibly retreated, he stepped up forward. The game sense here being displayed is impressive. Lag Force responds back to him. Where does he go? He's back at his keep, back at the fort, just nice and comfy there in the little nest back at home. And once they all walk away, does he move back? I mean, he's just next level in Lag Force.
This is really cool from Tempo Storm. They know that there have been a lot of people off the map, so they're trying to force the positioning by forcing people back. But this may be a collapse from Lag Force. Falstad's getting the top shrine. Tempo Storm have to back out very quickly, recognizing that they don't want to get caught with their pants down.
Both of the shrines controlled by Tempo. They make it through the Bermuda Triangle. Cattle's going to find himself members. B-Kid is yet to show himself. Psalm is going to be the focus. He gets entombed. Leon Black's falling low, but Fury's got the Tormented Soul.
As the Tormented Souls, they have the Gust too. Leon Black is the focus, and he will be brought down by Tempo Storm. An immediate turn to get the Dragonite, while Caterpillar keeps the rest of Lag Force at bay.
And now the Tempo Storm Dragonite, the third of the game, is going to march on here. Looks like the concentration is going to be towards the bottom keep. It's very realistic for this bottom keep to fall, especially considering those mercenaries that they got over that last team fight victory took out the keep front wall. This is going to be very easy, but Lag Force might be able to move beyond it, try and force a fight. Ideally, once Leon Black comes back to life, and if they get a couple of staggered deaths, even Tempo may be able to lock in this game. So it's very important that Lag Force plays safely here. iDream goes down.
Wow, Fury makes sure that's a reality. Cothenluck is the one inside of the Dragonite, so there is no Falstad. There's also a pause.
I'm guessing that had to do with the fact that Genji, I don't want to say he didn't play optimally, but I want to say that it did seem like there was a moment where he in fact could not control his character or something.
Yeah.
It just like he went in with the dash originally, which, let's be real here, that was high risk no matter what. But then afterwards, he was kind of like, I'm just in the middle of my old opponent. So that's a little awkward.
This is a strange place to pause because it's very likely end of game scenario here, especially with Genji going down. But Garrosh will be back up in a couple of seconds, and as we mentioned, it is Cothenluck inside of the Dragonite. So they don't have Gust until he comes out of that. Let's get back into the game and see the conclusion of Game 1 between Tempo Storm and Lag Force.
Now, Tempo making it onto the core. Again, there is that Gust once the Dragonite drops. 30 seconds remaining. 50% onto the core.
Psalm is staying away from Leon Black. He's the one who, as long as he could stay on the core, is doing a lot of damage here. Even getting Ancestral Healing just to make sure he can continue to damage it. And as Psalm brings down the core, there's a Gust. Tempo Storm takes Game 1 on Dragonshire.
Tempo Storm with a win. Yes, with a bit of control, and maybe for a majority of the game, but by no means was that Space Station Gaming. So, I feel in that area, there's still, something to be improved here for the members of Tempo Storm. It just was not nearly as dominant as I was hoping to see.
There were definitely a lot of pulls that landed from Leon Black. But at the same time, Tempo Storm made a lot of great adaptations to make sure that they could just focus him down right away. He went out into the fight, even if he would be able to get a combo, he was focused down very quickly, and unless Lag Force could make sure to kill the person who was pulled and tossed into the team, they were just facing a situation where they were 4v5.
Yeah, and a lot of it, for me, I think, because it's kind of hard to claim on a map like Dragonshire where you oftentimes don't see that many team fights, right? Like, how can you actually display dominance on those type of maps? And I feel like a lot of that is just through proactive play and through rotations. And I highlighted a little bit of the fall set or the lack of the fall set transitions. And again, I don't think that's on Cawthon. I think that is the laning situation. It's a compositional problem, and I feel like it was played appropriately. But there's still nobody else trying to do something in the laning phase. Lag Force was very patient, but they also had no wave clear. They are reactive. They have to be to that of Tempo Storm. But at no moment was Tempo getting a heavy siege, or were they looking for a gank? It was very much just, slow play coming out from them. And that's what I think is the biggest thing, is the lack of active play and more responsive from them.
Yeah, they did have the time where they made the turnaround of getting the Dragonshire loop, right? Where
Yeah.
you go and get the bruisers and then your own giants. Sieged with that, so at least they opened up the bottom lane, the towers there, and they did have a focus on the bottom lane and the fort. But I think the biggest thing for me was just the time that they went up to the top lane and they got caught. There was obviously Lag Force off the map for a very long time, where it seemed like maybe even just if Psalm was going to go down, then Falstad fly out of there, but realizing that it was just a little bit too late, Lag Force got the jump on them. They made sure to stay out of vision. Lag Force got those 2 kills, and that set them up so that they weren't very far behind in the mid game.
And Leon Black's making an argument for himself right now. The second best Garrosh. I'm still not giving him the justing level of appreciation there. But his, pulls into flips were, effectiveness-wise, in terms of like the ability to set the team ahead and increases the chances of winning the game, for a sub probably the highest that we've seen out of anybody so far. So I feel like, by no means can anybody go through that and be like, well, that was a Lag Force problem. Obviously, they aren't playing maybe as optimally as they would with Suna, but, Leon Black held his own. It's just always nice to see a sub come in and just not get bodied.
Yeah, I totally agree. Awesome job, Leon Black. Let's see what else you have to offer us. We've got game number 2 coming at you, and it will be on Cursed Hollow. Tempo Storm